Alright guys, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be answering probably the most heated and controversial question in the entirety of the Burning Crusade Classic. Who should get the Warglaives? Obviously the two main candidates for the Warglaives are the Rogue and Warrior. They are the only two classes in the game that can actually equip the Warglaives. Now, there's definitely one thing I definitely want to get out of the way first. You always should reward the player and not the class, okay? You have a really good rogue or a really good warrior who's really pulling their weight, but then the other candidate isn't really there pulling their weight, they're slacking a little bit in raids, not turning up to raid nights, yada yada, then it's probably not really worth giving to a particular class just because they'll get a better benefit out of it. You really should reward the player. Another thing guilds like to do is, say you've got a rogue and a warrior up for glaives, you give one of the rogue, one of the glaives, and then the next one that drops you give it to the warrior, and then you just leave it to RNG for whoever can eventually complete the set. And then it kind of makes it fair in a way, because you're kind of waiting for fate to decide who finishes their set first. Now, I definitely think that's a very fair way to do it. I think the only exception to that rule is that Hasu on the Pywood EU server should never, under pain of death, get the Warglaives, and that's not because he's my GM or anything. I wouldn't be that petty. There's a number of deeply important and well-researched reasons as to why he should not get Warglaives, and I've actually written a dissertation on my findings. I just don't have time to talk about it in this video. But if we're going to put sentimentality totally aside, okay, and we're going to get the big min-max big guns out, right? The truth is, the Warglaives, because of a set bonus that has a chance to increase the haste of the wielder by 450 for 10 seconds, that means it provides a rogue a bigger DPS increase than it would for a warrior. Now, don't get me wrong, haste is really good for warriors too. Haste is just slightly better for rogues. And the Warglaives are extremely powerful for a warrior and are best in slot for your whole expansion. They just provide a slightly bigger boost compared to, you know, other next best option weapons to the rogue rather than the warrior. Another thing that you've got to consider is a rogue will take advantage of the Warglaives in PvP. It will be best in slot for them in that scenario as well. Whereas for a warrior, the best spec is obviously arms, and they spec for a two-handed weapon and won't really use Warglaives. So overall, if we look at it from a mathematical and pragmatic standpoint, the rogues will benefit the most from obtaining Warglaives than a warrior, okay? There's another argument that warriors will get armor penetration fist weapons from Sunwell, which are extremely powerful, and they're not very far behind the Warglaives. But, you know, at that point the game is over anyway, right? You really want your warriors and your rogues to be pumping in Sunwell. It's going to be probably the most difficult raid. Plus, rogues also have good alternatives that they get from Sunwell too that aren't too far behind the Warglaives. So that isn't really a fairly good argument, to be honest. A lot of people, you know, are throwing that argument out there that, oh, warriors just get really good weapons from Sunwell that are just as good. They're not just as good, they are behind the Warglaives, and so do rogues as well, okay? And yeah, it's kind of like saying that warriors shouldn't get loot in AQ40. Sorry, AQ40, I don't know where that accent came from, because Nax gear is better. So you wouldn't stop a warrior from getting loot in AQ40 just because technically weapons from Naxxramas are better in slot. Overall, I think if you have a rogue and warrior in the guild who are really pulling their weight fairly equally, then you just give one of the glaives, and then the next one you give to the other, and then just let fate decide on who eventually gets to complete their set. Unless the rogue is a try-hard PvPer who's pushing gladiator and contributes to the guild a lot, you know, the warrior might be a little bit of a slacker, yada yada. And in the day, if two main hand Warglaives drop after each other, then, well, the rogue will get one, and then the warrior will get one. At the end of the day, it is up for guild leaders to decide. They can do whatever the hell they want to do. But anyway, I'm going to leave the video there. I don't think there's much else to discuss. My name is MetaGoblin. Until my next video, ciao.